Chapter 6. Marcus did the one thing no one expected. He shifted back to human form and sat down. Marcus, what are you doing? Helena's voice carried a note of genuine confusion. Waiting, Marcus said simply, settling cross-legged on the blood-stained concrete floor. Sage, whenever you're ready. Sage's grip on Lily had tightened to the point where the child was making small, pained sounds. Their face was a mask of concentration and growing horror as they fought against programming that had been embedded at the neurochemical level. I can't stop it, Sage said through gritted teeth. The fail-safe, it's overriding everything. Then don't stop it, Marcus said calmly. Come here. Aldrich stepped forward, his expression shifting from satisfaction to concern. Son, what are you? Shut up, Marcus said without looking at him. Sage, look at me. Sage's head turned toward him with jerky, mechanical movements. Their eyes were dilated, pupils blown wide with chemical warfare being fought inside their skull. Target acquired, Sage said in a voice that wasn't quite their own. Alpha threat level, maximum. Initiating termination sequence. They released Lily, who stumbled backward into Helena's arms, and began walking toward Marcus with predatory grace. Every movement was precise, economical, designed for maximum lethality. Marcus remained seated, hands resting loosely on his knees. You know, he said conversationally, this is probably the most honest conversation we've ever had. Sage's hand moved faster than human sight could follow, claws extending to rake across Marcus's chest. 4 parallel cuts opened his shirt and the skin beneath, blood immediately beginning to soak through the fabric. Chest wounds, Sage observed, their voice carrying its usual dry tone despite the mechanical overlay. Traditionally meant to intimidate rather than kill quickly. Though given the depth, I'd say you've got about 20 minutes before blood loss becomes problematic. Good to know, Marcus said, not moving to defend himself or stem the bleeding. How are you feeling? Like a passenger in my own body, Sage replied, circling him with fluid movements. It's remarkably unpleasant. I can see what I'm doing, understand the tactical reasoning, but I can't stop myself. They struck again, this time targeting Marcus's left arm. Claws tore through muscle and scraped against bone, leaving wounds that would require surgery to repair properly. Left radius, partially severed, Sage noted clinically. That's going to limit your range of motion significantly. Marcus flexed his fingers, testing the damage. Still functional. For now. Lily was staring at the scene with wide, confused eyes. Why isn't he fighting back? She whispered to Helena. Because he's weak, Helena replied, but her voice lacked its usual conviction. No, Aldrich said slowly, understanding beginning to dawn in his expression. He's trying to break the conditioning through emotional shock. Dr. Vex, still dying slowly from Sage's earlier attack, managed a weak laugh. Won't work, he gasped. The programming is designed to suppress emotional responses during combat situations. Pain won't override it. Marcus looked at Sage, who was positioning themselves for another strike. He's right, you know. Pain alone won't break this. Then what will? Sage asked, their voice carrying genuine curiosity despite the mechanical undertones. This, Marcus said, and instead of defending himself, he reached up and cupped Sage's face in his hands. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Sage went rigid, their entire body trembling as conflicting neurochemical commands crashed into each other. The programming demanded they kill the alpha threat. But the touch, gentle, trusting, completely vulnerable, triggered responses that had been carefully suppressed for years. No, Dr. Vex whispered, his eyes widening. That's not possible. Emotional conditioning works both ways, Marcus said, maintaining eye contact with Sage despite the claws still extended inches from his throat. You trained them to suppress feelings during combat. But you couldn't train them to suppress the memory of what feelings were supposed to feel like. Sage's claws retracted slightly, their pupils contracting as they fought for control. I can feel it breaking apart. Like ice cracking. Good. Don't fight the programming directly. Let it exhaust itself against something stronger. What's stronger than neurochemical conditioning? Marcus smiled, and despite the blood loss and pain, the expression was genuine. Choice. Sage's claws extended again, this time targeting Marcus's throat. But their movement was slower now, less precise. The kill programming was trying to complete its directive, but it was fighting against years of carefully buried emotional responses that were suddenly surging back to the surface. I don't want to hurt you, Sage said, their voice breaking. I know, Marcus replied. But you're going to anyway. And that's okay. How is that okay? Because you're fighting it. Because every time you hesitate, every moment you struggle against the programming, you're choosing to be human instead of a weapon. Sage's claws found Marcus's shoulder, tearing through muscle and scraping against his collarbone. The pain was extraordinary, but Marcus didn't flinch. Right shoulder, Sage observed, their clinical detachment warring with growing emotional awareness. That's going to affect your ability to shift properly. Probably. You could die from these injuries. Possibly. And you're not going to stop me. No. Sage stared at him for a long moment, claws still embedded in his shoulder. Why? Because someone has to trust you to find your way back, Marcus said simply. And everyone else sees you as a weapon. I see you as a person. The words hit Sage like a physical blow. They staggered backward, claws retracting, their face cycling through expressions as suppressed emotions crashed over them in waves. I remember, Sage whispered. Before Dr. Vex. Before the conditioning. I remember being different. Tell me, Marcus said, staying seated despite the blood pooling around him. I was angry. All the time. At the handlers, at the other test subjects, at the whole system that had trapped us. Sage looked at their hands, still stained with Marcus's blood. The anger felt clean. Pure. It was mine. What happened to it? Vex said anger made me unpredictable. Dangerous to handle. So he took it away. Along with everything else that made me hard to control. Marcus watched as understanding dawned in Sage's eyes. The full scope of what had been done to them, the years of stolen emotions and manufactured compliance. Oh God, Sage breathed. What did I become? A survivor, Marcus said firmly. Someone who did what they had to do to stay alive in an impossible situation. I killed people. So many people. Under chemical compulsion. That's not the same as choosing to kill. Sage looked at him with something that might have been hope. Do you really believe that? I believe that the person standing in front of me right now is fighting against years of conditioning to avoid hurting someone they care about. That's not the action of a weapon. That's the action of someone with a functioning conscience. Dr. Vex made a strangled sound from where he lay dying. The conditioning, it can't be broken that easily. Years of modification. Years of trauma, Marcus corrected. Which means it can be undone, given time and the right circumstances. Lily, who had been watching this exchange with growing fascination, suddenly spoke up. Is that what they did to me? The question hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. Helena's grip on her daughter tightened. Lily, sweetheart, you don't understand. They made me hate him, Lily said, pointing at Marcus. The same way they made Sage into a weapon. They changed my brain to make me feel things that aren't real. Your feelings are perfectly real, Aldrich said, stepping forward with calculated calm. You hate your father because he abandoned you. Because he chose his own comfort over your safety. Did he? Lily asked, and for the first time, her voice carried genuine uncertainty. Or is that just what you told me to make me easier to control? Marcus looked at his daughter, really looked at her, and saw past the conditioning to the confused, frightened child underneath. Lily, I never abandoned you. Your mother took you away while I was unconscious from the shift. By the time I woke up, you were both gone. Lies, Helena said quickly. Lily, don't listen to him. He's trying to manipulate you. Like you manipulated me? Lily asked, turning to face her mother. Like grandfather manipulated both of us? The accusation hit its target. Helena's perfect composure cracked, revealing something desperate underneath. Everything we did was to protect you, Helena said. To make you strong enough to survive in this world. By turning me into a child soldier? Lily's voice was getting stronger, more confident. By teaching me to hate my own father? By teaching you the truth about what he is. What truth? Lily demanded. That he's dangerous? That he's a monster? Or that he's sitting there letting someone he cares about hurt him because he trusts them to find their way back to being human? The words silenced the room. Even Dr. Vex stopped his labored breathing to listen. Marcus felt something warm in his chest that had nothing to do with blood loss. His daughter, his brilliant, perceptive daughter, was seeing through years of conditioning with the clarity that only children possessed. Lily, Aldrich said, his voice carrying alpha command that should have compelled obedience. You will stop this questioning immediately. No, Lily said simply. And somehow, impossibly, the alpha command slid off her like water off glass. Aldrich's eyes widened. That's not possible. Apparently it is, Sage said, their voice stronger now, more like their usual dry tone. Turns out kids are harder to permanently brainwash than adults. Their brains are still developing, still adaptable. They looked at Marcus, who was starting to show signs of serious blood loss but remained upright through sheer determination. How did you know? Sage asked. That letting me hurt you would break the conditioning? Marcus smiled weakly. Because I've been conditioned too. Just differently. My father spent my entire childhood teaching me that love was weakness, that caring about people made you vulnerable. It took months of you making me tea and organizing my files to realize that maybe caring about someone was actually a strength. So you decided to prove it by letting me try to kill you. I decided to prove it by trusting you not to. Sage looked at their blood-covered hands, then at Marcus's injuries. I did hurt you, though. Badly. But you stopped. You fought through years of chemical conditioning because you chose to. That's the most human thing I've ever seen anyone do. Dr. Vex made one last desperate attempt to reassert control. With his dying breath, he activated a secondary protocol through the device still embedded in Sage's skull. Override, he gasped. Termination sequence, final activation. Sage went rigid again, but this time was different. Instead of cold mechanical precision, their face showed pure anguish as they fought against programming that was trying to force them to complete their original directive. I can't, Sage said, tears streaming down their face. It's too strong. The fail-safe is designed to activate on the handler's death. Then we'll have to do this the hard way, Marcus said, struggling to his feet despite his injuries. What hard way? Marcus reached into his jacket and pulled out a small silver knife, the same blade Lily had dropped earlier. We remove the device. That's suicide, Helena protested. The neural implant is connected directly to their brain stem. Removing it without proper surgical equipment will probably kill them, Marcus agreed. But leaving it indefinitely will. He held out the knife to Sage handle first. Your choice. Sage took the blade with shaking hands. I've never performed brain surgery on myself before. First time for everything, Marcus said. Though I should probably mention that you'll need to do it quickly. We've got about 30 seconds before Helena's explosives turn this building into a crater. Lily looked at the timer on Helena's remote, which was counting down past the 1-minute mark. She wasn't bluffing about the bombs. Family trait, Marcus said dryly. We're all terrible at bluffing but excellent at following through on threats. Sage positioned the knife against the base of their skull, feeling for the device that had controlled their life for so many years. If this kills me. It won't, Marcus said with complete confidence. How can you be sure? Because I have faith in your capacity for survival. And because someone needs to help me figure out how to be a proper father to a daughter who's been trained to kill werewolves. Lily looked up sharply. You want me to stay with you? I want you to have the chance to decide for yourself, Marcus said. Without anyone else's programming telling you what to think or feel. Even if I decide I still hate you? Even then. Sage pressed the knife deeper, finding the edge of the neural implant. This is going to hurt. Everything worthwhile does, Marcus replied. The explosion countdown reached 15 seconds. Sage took a deep breath and began to cut. Blood flowed, the device sparked and went dark, and somewhere in the building's foundation, Helena's finger hovered over the detonation remote. And in that moment of absolute chaos, Marcus realized that for the first time in his life, he was exactly where he was supposed to be, bleeding, terrified, and completely, irrevocably human. The countdown hit 0. Chapter 7. The building didn't explode. Helena stood frozen with her finger on the detonation remote, staring at Marcus as he calmly reached over and plucked the device from her hands. 47 floors of innocent people, Marcus said, crushing the remote under his boot. Even you're not that cold-blooded. I had to sell the threat, Helena replied, but her voice lacked conviction. No, Marcus said, blood still seeping from Sage's emergency surgery. You wanted me to believe you'd kill Lily. You wanted to see if I'd sacrifice myself for her. Behind him, Sage swayed on their feet, the neural implants sparking and smoking in their palm. The device was small, barely larger than a coin, but removing it had required precise cuts that left them pale and shaking. Status report? Marcus asked without turning around. Still alive, Sage managed, their voice weaker but recognizably their own. Though I'm pretty sure I just gave myself a concussion. Also, I can feel emotions again, which is both terrifying and oddly liberating. What kind of emotions? Mostly rage. An absolutely staggering amount of rage. I'm honestly impressed I didn't murder more people over the years. Lily looked between Marcus and Sage with growing understanding. The device was controlling how you felt. Among other things, Sage said, wiping blood from their neck. Think of it as a very aggressive form of therapy. If therapy involved electrodes and chemical suppressants. Aldrich stepped forward, his alpha dominance radiating through the destroyed hallway. Enough of this sentiment. Marcus, you've proven your point. Now submit, and we can begin rebuilding our family properly. Counteroffer, Marcus said, turning to face his father. Trial by combat. Old way rules. The words hung in the air like a challenge written in blood. Aldrich's eyes widened slightly, not with fear, but with something that might have been respect. You're invoking the old laws? Winner takes all, Marcus continued. Lily's custody, the consortium leadership, everything. Fight to the death, no interference from outside parties. Marcus, Helena protested, you can't be serious. You're injured, exhausted. I'm finally thinking clearly, Marcus interrupted. For the first time in years. Aldrich studied his son with calculating eyes. And if you lose? Then you get what you've always wanted. Complete control over the family legacy, a granddaughter you can shape into the perfect weapon, and no more inconvenient sentimentality to complicate your plans. And if you win? Then Lily gets to choose her own life. Helena gets to live with the consequences of her choices. And you get to experience what every one of your victims felt in their final moments. Sage leaned against the wall, still bleeding from their impromptu surgery. This is either the most romantic gesture I've ever witnessed, or the most elaborate suicide attempt. Possibly both. It's strategy, Marcus said. Pure and simple. Care to share with the class? Marcus smiled, and the expression held secrets. In a minute. Aldrich began loosening his tie, his movements deliberate and ceremonial. Very well. Old way rules. No weapons, no assistance, no mercy. Agreed. To the death. Agreed. Witnessed by blood family. Aldrich looked at Lily, who was watching the proceedings with wide, intelligent eyes. Your granddaughter will watch you die, Marcus. She'll see exactly what weakness leads to. Or she'll see what happens when someone finally stands up to a bully, Marcus replied. Dr. Vex, still dying slowly in the corner, made a desperate grab for a backup remote. Override protocol, he gasped. Sage, terminate all alphas in vicinity. Sage looked down at the device Vex was trying to activate, then calmly stepped on his wrist. Hard. Sorry, Doc, but I think our professional relationship is officially terminated. Along with your wrist, apparently. The conditioning is gone, Sage said cheerfully. Turns out when you remove the neural implant, all those pesky chemical controls stop working. Who could have predicted that? Marcus was already shifting, his body flowing into the massive wolf form that had terrorized 40 SRC operatives earlier that night. But something was different this time. His movements were more controlled, more precise. And when Aldrich began his own transformation, expecting to dominate through sheer alpha presence, he met nothing. No submission. No acknowledgement of hierarchy. Just a predator that refused to recognize any authority but its own. Impossible, Aldrich growled, his own shift faltering. You're not immune to alpha dominance. No, Marcus agreed, circling his father with fluid grace. But I'd been preparing for this fight for weeks. How? Marcus glanced at Sage, who was watching the proceedings with professional interest despite their injuries. Sage's void omega pheromones aren't just effective against alphas during combat. In small doses, over time, they can build immunity to dominance entirely. You've been dosing yourself, Aldrich realized. Every cup of tea, every casual conversation, every moment I spent in their presence. I've been systematically immunizing myself against the very weapon you've used to control me my entire life. Sage looked genuinely impressed. That's actually brilliant. Also incredibly dangerous. Prolonged exposure to void omega pheromones can cause permanent neurological damage. Only if you fight them, Marcus said. I learned to accept them. To let them become part of me. Which means I'm not just immune to alpha dominance anymore. I'm functionally immune to all supernatural hierarchical controls. Aldrich's transformation completed, revealing a wolf that was still massive, still dangerous, but no longer the unchallenged apex predator he'd always been. For the first time in 50 years, he was facing an opponent who refused to acknowledge his superiority. They collided in the center of the hallway with enough force to crack the concrete floor. Claws met teeth, muscle strained against muscle, and 2 generations of Blackwood fury finally found an outlet. But the real battle was happening on multiple levels. On the 14th floor, where the fight had started, Lily watched her father and grandfather tear into each other with inhuman savagery. Every blow, every wound, every moment of advantage gained and lost was a lesson in what power really meant when stripped of pretense. Is Daddy going to die? She asked Helena quietly. I don't know, Helena admitted, and for the first time since Lily had known her, her mother sounded genuinely uncertain. On the 15th floor, where Sage had collapsed from blood loss and exhaustion, Dr. Vex made one final attempt to reassert control. Emergency backup protocols, hidden triggers, every failsafe he'd built into years of conditioning. You can't escape what you are, he whispered as Sage crawled toward him. You're my creation. My perfect weapon. You're right, Sage said, reaching him with obvious effort. I am exactly what you made me. A killer who's very, very good at their job. They pressed their hand against Vex's throat, feeling his pulse flutter weakly beneath their palm. The difference is, Sage continued conversationally, now I get to choose who I kill. Vex's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. You can't, the oath, medical personnel are protected under supernatural law, Sage agreed. But you stopped being medical personnel the moment you decided to experiment on children. Now you're just another monster who needs to be put down. The pressure on Vex's throat increased incrementally, and his struggles grew weaker. For what it's worth, Sage said, this isn't personal. Well, it's a little personal. But mostly it's just practical. Dr. Vex died quietly, without drama or fanfare. Just one more casualty in a war that had been going on long before any of them were born. Meanwhile, 16 floors below, Marcus and Aldrich were destroying everything in their path. The executive level had become a battlefield of overturned furniture, shattered glass, and blood that belonged to both combatants. Aldrich was older, more experienced, and had spent decades perfecting techniques that had made him legendary among supernatural enforcers. But Marcus had advantages his father couldn't have anticipated: desperation, rage, and complete immunity to the psychological warfare that had always been Aldrich's greatest weapon. "You can't win," Aldrich snarled, blood frothing from wounds that would have killed a normal werewolf. "Even if you defeat me, you'll never be free. The consortium has resources you can't imagine." "Then I'll destroy the consortium too," Marcus replied, pressing his advantage. "You'll spend the rest of your life running. Better than spending it kneeling." They crashed through a conference room wall, sending chunks of drywall and steel flying across the office space. Somewhere in the distance, fire alarms were going off, either from structural damage or the building's security systems finally registering the chaos happening in its upper floors. Lily was watching it all from the stairwell, her young face cycling through expressions as she processed what she was seeing. This wasn't the controlled violence she'd been trained for. This was raw, primal, desperate, two predators fighting for survival and the right to define what their family would become. "He's going to lose," Helena said, though she sounded like she was trying to convince herself as much as Lily. "No," Lily said quietly. "Grandfather's stronger, but Daddy's fighting for something different." "What do you mean?" "Grandfather's fighting to keep control. Daddy's fighting to let go of it." The insight was startling in its clarity, and Helena found herself really looking at her daughter for the first time in months. Lily wasn't the perfectly controlled weapon they'd spent years creating. She was a 7-year-old girl who'd been forced to grow up too fast, trying to make sense of a world where the adults who were supposed to protect her had turned her into a tool for their own ambitions. "Lily," Helena began, but her daughter cut her off. "I know what you did to me," Lily said simply. "The same thing they did to Sage. You changed how my brain works so I'd hate Daddy and trust Grandfather. We were protecting you. You were using me." Lily's voice carried no accusation, just flat statement of fact. "And now I have to decide who I really am." 17 floors below, Marcus landed a devastating blow that sent Aldrich crashing through another wall. His father was tiring, decades of comfortable leadership having left him unprepared for a fight where victory wasn't guaranteed. But Aldrich still had one card left to play. "Do you know what happened to your real mother?" he called out, using the momentary distance to catch his breath. Marcus went very still. "What?" "The cancer story was convenient fiction. She discovered what I was planning for you, and she tried to interfere. Tried to take you away from me." "You're lying." "I snapped her neck myself," Aldrich said with casual brutality. "Right in front of you. You were 3 years old. You don't remember because I had your memories altered afterward." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow, and for a moment, his guard dropped. Aldrich pressed his advantage, lunging forward with claws extended toward his son's throat. That's when Lily appeared. She moved with the fluid precision they'd spent years drilling into her, silver knife appearing in her hand like magic. But instead of targeting Marcus, as her conditioning demanded, she struck at Aldrich. The blade found the space between his ribs with surgical accuracy, penetrating deep enough to pierce his heart. Aldrich's momentum carried him forward, but his attack faltered as shock replaced fury in his eyes. "Lily," he gasped, looking down at the knife protruding from his chest. "I choose Daddy," she said simply. Aldrich collapsed, his transformation reversing as death claimed him. In the sudden silence that followed, Marcus shifted back to human form and stared at his daughter in amazement. "You killed him," he said, not sure if he was horrified or proud. "He was going to hurt you," Lily replied with 7-year-old logic. "And he killed Grandma. So I killed him back." Sage's voice drifted down from the stairwell, "And this is why I don't do holidays." Marcus looked at his daughter, his brilliant, deadly, traumatized daughter who'd just committed murder to protect him, and felt something break open in his chest that wasn't entirely pain. "Are you okay?" he asked. Lily considered the question seriously. "I think so. I mean, I'm sad about Grandfather, but I'm not sorry I stopped him. Does that make me a bad person?" "No," Marcus said, pulling her into a careful hug. That makes you someone who chose love over fear. That makes you brave. Even though I killed someone? Sometimes, Marcus said quietly, protecting the people you love requires making terrible choices. The important thing is that you made the choice yourself, not because someone programmed you to. Helena appeared in the doorway, surveying the destruction with numb shock. What happens now? Marcus looked at her, the woman who'd tried to destroy him, who'd poisoned him, who'd weaponized their daughter against him, and felt surprisingly little anger. Now, he said, you get to live with the consequences of your choices. Alone. And Lily? Marcus looked down at his daughter, who was still holding the bloody knife with professional competence. Lily gets to decide what kind of person she wants to be. Without anyone else's programming telling her what to think or feel. Sage finally made it down to their floor, still bleeding but mobile. So, they said, surveying the scene, what's the final body count? 42 SRC operatives, Dr. Vex, and Aldrich Blackwood, Marcus recited. Plus whoever else doesn't survive their injuries. And the consortium? We'll need new leadership. Sage grinned, and despite everything they'd been through, the expression was genuinely warm. I like where this is going. Marcus looked around at the destruction they'd wrought, the blood, the bodies, the shattered remains of a building that had once represented everything he'd thought he wanted from life. You know what the funny thing is? He said. What? For the first time in my life, I actually feel like I'm home. Lily looked up at him with golden eyes that were so much like his own. Me too, Daddy. And in that moment, surrounded by chaos and death and the smoking ruins of their enemies, the Blackwood family finally began to heal. It was twisted, violent, and deeply dysfunctional. It was also, somehow, genuine love. Which was probably the most human thing any of them had ever experienced. Chapter 8. 6 months later. The office was nothing like Marcus's old corporate tower. Located in an unremarkable building in Georgetown, Blackwood Consulting Solutions looked exactly like what it claimed to be, a mid-tier business advisory firm specializing in delicate transition management for private clients. The reality was considerably more interesting. Marcus stood at the window overlooking Elliott Bay, watching the morning ferry traffic while steam rose from his cup of tea. Sage's latest blend, something with ginger and mint that helped with the lingering pain from old silver wounds. Behind him, soft jazz played from speakers hidden throughout the office, mixing with the sound of Lily practicing knife work in the converted conference room. Daddy, Lily called out, can I use the poisoned blades for target practice? Not until after your therapy session, Marcus replied without turning around. Dr. Chen wants you to work on expressing anger through words before we move to advanced toxicology. But I already know 17 different ways to kill someone with household chemicals. And that's wonderful, sweetheart. But healthy emotional expression is also important. Sage emerged from the kitchen carrying a fresh pot of tea and wearing the kind of satisfied expression that usually meant they'd just finished planning something particularly creative. Good session with the therapist yesterday? Marcus asked. Very productive, Lily said, appearing in the doorway with throwing knives balanced perfectly in each hand. Dr. Chen says I'm making excellent progress in contextualizing my trauma responses and developing healthy coping mechanisms for violent urges. Translation: I'm learning when it's appropriate to kill people versus when I should just threaten them. That's my girl. Sage set down the tea and pulled out a tablet, swiping through what looked like case files. Speaking of appropriate violence, we got 3 new client inquiries this morning. Marcus settled into his chair, a far cry from the silver restraint setup he'd once used to chain himself to his desk. This office was warm, comfortable, designed for collaboration rather than isolation. Anything interesting? Pack politics in Oregon. Alpha's been systematically abusing Omega members. Local supernatural authorities are either bought off or too scared to intervene. Sage pulled up photos that would have made most people reach for antacids. Client wants a permanent solution. Messy? Very. 3 generations of genetic trauma, dozens of victims, and enough evidence to put the Alpha away for centuries if anyone actually cared about supernatural justice. Marcus studied the case file, noting the familiar patterns. Abuse of power, systemic cover-ups, victims too scared or conditioned to fight back. 6 months ago, he would have referred this to proper authorities. Now he understood that sometimes proper authorities were part of the problem. What's our client offering? $2 million, plus expenses. They specifically requested our full-service package. Full service meant the target disappeared permanently with no questions asked and no loose ends left behind. It was their most expensive offering and, unfortunately, their most popular. Any complications? The alpha has a 17-year-old son who's been groomed to take over the pack. Kid's apparently a sociopath in training, but he's still technically a minor. Noted. What else? Sage flipped to the next file. Supernatural Regulatory Committee corruption in Miami. Regional director's been selling protection to human trafficking rings that specialize in supernatural victims. Difficulty level? Federal agent with 30 years of experience and connections throughout the supernatural community. Plus, he's got a werewolf for a bodyguard. Timeline? Client wants it done before the next shipment arrives. That gives us 4 days. Marcus sipped his tea and considered the logistics. Federal agents required more finesse than pack alphas. Too much attention from the wrong people could complicate their entire operation. And the third case? Sage's expression darkened. This one's personal. Remember Dr. Vek's research facility? The one you burned down? Apparently there were satellite locations. 3 of them, still operational. Still experimenting on supernatural children. Marcus set down his tea carefully. Client? Anonymous. But the payment structure suggests government backing. Our government or theirs? Unclear. Does it matter? Marcus considered this. Over the past 6 months, they'd taken contracts from federal agencies, foreign governments, supernatural councils, and private individuals. The source of payment mattered less than the target's elimination. Lily, he called out, what's your assessment of the Oregon pack situation? His daughter appeared immediately, moving with the fluid grace that had become second nature since her training intensified. At 7.5, she could analyze tactical situations with the competence of a seasoned operator. Alpha's been in power for 43 years, Lily recited, consulting notes she'd apparently already prepared. 7 known murders, dozens of disappearances, financial corruption totaling approximately $6 million. Son is 18 next month, which means he'll legally inherit pack leadership. Recommendation? Eliminate both targets simultaneously. Make it look like rival pack aggression. Suggests natural succession to remaining pack members without exposing our involvement. Excellent analysis, Marcus said, and meant it. What about the federal agent in Miami? Car accident during routine travel. Werewolf bodyguard can be handled with specialized sedatives. He'll just think his boss died in an unfortunate collision. And the research facilities? Lily's expression went cold in a way that would have been disturbing on any other child. Those places hurt kids like me and Sage. They shouldn't exist. Agreed. But methodology? Fire, Lily said simply. Like Sage did to the original facility. Fire destroys evidence, creates chaos, and sends a message to anyone else running similar operations. Sage looked impressed. She's getting good at this. She's getting scary good at this, Marcus corrected. Which reminds me, Dr. Chen wants to discuss Lily's casual relationship with violence in our next family session. What does that mean? It means our daughter treats murder planning like other kids treat math homework. And that's a problem because? Marcus considered this. 6 months ago, he would have been horrified by Lily's casual competence with violence. Now he found himself oddly proud of her analytical skills and strategic thinking. According to Dr. Chen, the concern isn't that Lily's comfortable with violence. It's that she doesn't seem to understand why other people find it disturbing. That's fair, Sage said. Most 7-year-olds don't casually suggest burning down buildings full of people. Most 7-year-olds weren't raised by weapons specialists and engineered killing machines, Lily pointed out reasonably. Also fair. Marcus pulled up their scheduling system and began plotting timelines. Oregon first, that one's time-sensitive given the son's approaching birthday. Miami second, since federal agents require more preparation. Research facilities last, since anonymous clients tend to be more flexible about deadlines. Agreed, Sage said. Though we should probably subcontract the Miami job. I've got contacts who specialize in making federal agents disappear. Reliable contacts? The kind who've never left evidence behind. Cost? $500,000, plus we handle the Werewolf separately. Marcus nodded approvingly. Over the past 6 months, they'd built a network of specialists who could handle jobs that fell outside their particular skill sets. Former military, displaced supernatural enforcers, and the occasional sociopath with useful talents. Lily, pack analysis homework for tonight, Marcus said. I want detailed profiles on all pack members, including family relationships, financial dependencies, and potential succession disputes. Already done, Lily said, handing him a tablet. Also, I identified 3 pack members who've been documenting the Alpha's crimes. They'll be valuable witnesses if we need to justify our actions afterward. Marcus reviewed her work, noting the thoroughness and attention to detail that would have impressed professional intelligence analysts. This is graduate-level research, he said. Dr. Chen says I'm academically gifted but emotionally compartmentalized. I think that means I'm smart but weird. You're not weird, Sage said. You're adapted to your environment. Most kids your age worry about video games and playground politics. You worry about keeping your family safe and helping people escape dangerous situations. By killing the dangerous people. By removing threats that can't be neutralized through conventional means, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. What difference? Intent and methodology. We don't kill people because we enjoy it. We kill people because it's necessary to protect others. Lily considered this seriously. So we're the good guys? We're the necessary guys, Sage said. Good and bad are subjective concepts. Necessary is objective. I like that better anyway, Lily said. Good guys have to follow rules. Necessary guys just have to be effective. Marcus felt a warm surge of pride mixed with concern. His daughter was brilliant, adaptable, and completely amoral by conventional standards. She was also happy, healthy, and developing genuine emotional connections despite her unconventional upbringing. Dr. Chen called it adaptive resilience. Marcus called it successful parenting under impossible circumstances. Speaking of effectiveness, Sage said, we need to discuss the Oregon timeline. Client wants the Alpha eliminated before his son's birthday party next week. Birthday party? 18-year-old sociopath inheriting a pack that's been systematically brutalized for 4 decades. The party is basically a coronation ceremony where he officially takes power. Guests. 200 pack members, plus representatives from 6 allied packs. All of whom have been conditioned to accept abuse as normal pack dynamics. Marcus studied the guest list, noting familiar names from other cases they'd declined to take. Politics was always complicated in supernatural communities, but pack politics were especially Byzantine. Opportunity, he said finally. What kind of opportunity? Mass deprogramming. 200 abuse victims watching their abuser get eliminated during what's supposed to be his moment of ultimate triumph. You want to make it public? I want to make it educational. Sage grinned, and the expression was sharp enough to cut glass. I like the way you think. Daddy, Lily said, can I help with the Oregon job? I've been practicing crowd control techniques. What kind of crowd control techniques? Non-lethal suppression methods for managing large groups of panicked civilians. Marcus looked at Sage, who shrugged. She's been reading tactical manuals. Kids got natural aptitude for strategic planning. Fine. But you're observing only. No direct participation until you're at least 10. That's not fair. Sage was killing people when they were my age. Sage was chemically conditioned and had no choice in the matter. You get to choose when you're ready for fieldwork. Lily considered this, then nodded approvingly. I like having choices. Good. Because choices are what separate us from the people we eliminate. The afternoon passed quickly as they refined their operational plans. Oregon would require careful timing, multiple exit strategies, and contingencies for various complications. Marcus found himself falling into the familiar rhythm of tactical planning, the same analytical mindset he'd once applied to corporate acquisitions now focused on considerably more permanent solutions. By evening, they had 3 comprehensive operational plans, detailed client agreements, and a timeline that would keep them busy for the next month. Dinner? Sage asked, closing the last case file. In a minute, Marcus said, reviewing their financial projections. We're on track to gross $12 million this year. Not bad for a startup assassination business. Not bad for anything. Lily appeared in the doorway carrying a backpack and looking remarkably normal for someone who'd spent the afternoon planning multiple murders. Dr. Chen wants me to practice age-appropriate social interactions, she announced. So I'm having a sleepover at Emma's house tomorrow night. Emma from your art therapy group? Emma, whose father runs the Supernatural Victim Advocacy Organization, Lily corrected. I figured it would be good networking. Marcus stared at his daughter, once again impressed by her strategic thinking. Networking? Emma's family helps supernatural abuse victims escape dangerous situations. We eliminate threats that can't be handled through conventional intervention. Seems like natural synergy. You're 7 years old. And I'm very good at my job. Sage laughed, the sound warm and genuine. She has a point. She also has homework and a bedtime. Already finished. Math, reading comprehension, and a tactical analysis of 3 historical assassination attempts. Plus I practiced piano for an hour. Marcus checked his watch. Bedtime in 30 minutes. Can I finish reviewing the Oregon surveillance footage first? 10 minutes. Then teeth brushing and story time. What story tonight? Marcus considered the options. Over the past 6 months, bedtime stories had evolved from traditional fairy tales to carefully sanitized accounts of their case files. Lily seemed to find their work more interesting than dragons and princesses. How about the Seattle case? The one where we helped those Omega kids escape that trafficking ring? I like that one. The part where Sage poisoned the traffickers with their own supply was really clever. It was, wasn't it? Lily disappeared back into her room, and Marcus was left alone with Sage in their comfortable, deadly, utterly unconventional office. You know, Sage said, refilling Marcus's teacup, 6 months ago I thought the whole domestic bliss thing was just a cover story people told themselves to avoid confronting their own darkness. And now? Now I think domestic bliss is entirely possible. It just looks different when you're sharing it with other monsters. Marcus looked around their office, at the case files detailing human misery, at the tactical equipment disguised as office supplies, at the family photos sitting next to detailed assassination plans. It was warm, functional, and filled with purpose. Speaking of which, Sage said, pulling out a new case file, we got an interesting inquiry this afternoon. Pack Alpha in Vancouver's been systematically abusing Omega children for breeding purposes. Client wants a permanent solution. Difficulty level? High. Target's got political connections and a private security firm staffed entirely by ex-military werewolves. Fee? $3 million. Plus they're offering a bonus if we can make it look like natural causes. Marcus studied the preliminary intelligence, noting the familiar patterns of abuse, corruption, and systematic victimization. Poison or accident? He asked. Surprise me, Sage replied, their smile sharp with anticipation. They raised their teacups in a casual toast, 2 monsters planning murder with the same comfortable intimacy other couples use to discuss weekend plans. To necessary work, Marcus said. To finding purpose in darkness, Sage replied. They drank chamomile tea and planned death, surrounded by case files that would keep them busy for months and a family that had found happiness in the most unlikely circumstances. Outside their windows, Seattle settled into evening routine, unaware that in an unremarkable office building, 3 of the most dangerous people in the supernatural world were living their version of happily ever after. It was twisted, violent, and morally complicated. It was also, somehow, exactly right. "Daddy," Lily called from her room, "can you come tell me the story now?" "Coming, sweetheart," Marcus called back, setting down his tea and walking toward the sound of his daughter's voice. He paused in the doorway to look back at Sage, who was already pulling up surveillance footage of their next target, planning death with the same careful attention to detail they'd once applied to organizing his files. "I love you," Marcus said quietly. "I love you too," Sage replied without looking up from their work. "Now go tell our sociopathic daughter a bedtime story about justice through violence." "Best family ever," Marcus said, and meant it completely. Because love hadn't fixed them. It had simply given their darkness direction, purpose, and someone to share it with. And that, Marcus reflected as he went to tuck in his weaponized daughter, was probably the most honest kind of happiness any of them could have hoped for. The monsters had found their home. And they were going to live horribly ever after. Epilogue. 5 years later. The graduation ceremony was held in the elementary school gymnasium, complete with folding chairs, proud parents wielding cameras, and the kind of chaotic energy that only comes from corralling 60 12-year-olds in caps and gowns. Marcus sat in the 3rd row, trying to look like any other father attending his daughter's elementary school graduation. The effort was somewhat undermined by the tactical vest he wore under his suit jacket and the fact that Sage was conducting a security sweep of the building while pretending to look for the bathroom. "She looks nervous," Marcus observed, watching Lily fidget with her graduation cap. "She's never performed in front of this many civilians before," Sage replied through his earpiece. "Also, perimeter's clear. No threats detected, though the PE teacher has suspiciously good situational awareness." "Former military? Marine Corps, probably. The way he scans crowd suggests combat experience." Marcus made a mental note to research the PE teacher later. Not because he suspected anything sinister, but because 5 years in the assassination business had taught him that paranoia was just another word for good professional habits. On stage, Lily was being called up to receive an award for academic excellence and creative problem solving. She walked across the platform with the fluid grace that had become second nature, shaking the principal's hand with perfect poise. "That's our girl," Marcus murmured, feeling the familiar surge of pride mixed with mild concern that came with watching his daughter excel at everything she attempted. "Ladies and gentlemen," the principal announced, "Lily Blackwood will now present her award-winning science project, Innovative Applications of Chemical Compounds in Environmental Problem Solving." Marcus felt his blood run cold. "Please tell me she didn't present a detailed analysis of how various toxins can be used to eliminate invasive species." Sage's voice carried amusement. "Because if so, then yes, she absolutely did." Lily stepped up to the microphone with the confidence of someone who'd been briefing tactical teams since she was 7. "Thank you, Principal Martinez. My project examines how targeted chemical interventions can restore ecological balance by removing harmful elements from environmental systems." She's talking about murder, Marcus realized. She's presenting a murder tutorial disguised as environmental science. Technically, she's presenting ecological management strategies that happen to have broader applications, Sage corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there? Legally speaking?" "Absolutely." On stage, Lily was explaining her methodology with the kind of enthusiasm most kids reserved for video games. "The key is understanding which compounds will eliminate the target species without harming beneficial organisms in the same ecosystem." A parent in the front row raised her hand. "This is fascinating, Lily. How did you come up with this idea?" "My family does consulting work in environmental management," Lily replied smoothly. "We specialize in removing problematic elements from complex systems." "What kind of problematic elements?" Lily glanced toward Marcus, and he caught the slight smile that meant she was about to say something that would either make him proud or give him a heart attack. "Invasive predators, mostly. The kind that disrupts natural hierarchies and threatens vulnerable populations." The parent nodded approvingly. "That sounds like important work." "We think so," Lily said. Prevention and early intervention are always preferable, but sometimes direct action is the only viable solution. Marcus watched his daughter field questions about her environmental research, with the same professional competence she brought to analyzing case files. She was 12 years old, honor roll student, captain of the debate team, and could plan an assassination with the efficiency of a seasoned operative. Dr. Chen called it remarkable adaptive integration. Marcus called it the most successful parenting job in history, given the circumstances. Sage, Marcus said quietly, are you getting this? Recording everything. This is going in the family archives under Lily's greatest hits. She's giving a tutorial on targeted elimination to a room full of elementary school parents. And they're eating it up. Kids got natural charisma. After the presentation, Lily rejoined Marcus in the audience for the rest of the ceremony. She settled beside him with the satisfied expression of someone who just delivered a flawless performance. How did I do? She asked quietly. Terrifying and perfect, Marcus replied. Though we might want to avoid science fairs for a while. Why? I've got some great ideas for next year's project. That's what I'm afraid of. The ceremony concluded with the traditional march across the stage to receive diplomas. When Lily's name was called, Marcus stood and applauded with genuine enthusiasm. Whatever else she was, his daughter was brilliant, confident, and surrounded by people who cared about her success. The fact that she was also a tactical prodigy who could plan murders with frightening competence was just an additional skill set. After the ceremony, they drove home through Seattle traffic while Lily chattered about her plans for middle school. Advanced placement classes, debate team, and what she called expanded extracurricular activities that Marcus suspected involved more hands-on training with their business operations. How was the security sweep? Lily asked Sage as they pulled into their driveway. Clean. Though I think the custodial staff might be retired intelligence. Their cleaning patterns suggest surveillance training. Should we investigate? Already on it, Marcus said. Background checks on all school personnel get updated quarterly. Good. I like my school. It would be unfortunate if we had to eliminate anyone there. Marcus parked and turned to look at his daughter. Lily, you know you can't actually eliminate your teachers, right? Not without cause, she agreed. But if someone threatened the other kids, or tried to hurt my friends, then we'd handle it as a family, Sage finished. That's what families do. They walked into their house, a comfortable suburban home that looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen where Sage perfected new tea blends and occasionally tested non-lethal sedatives, and a basement that absolutely did not contain enough weapons to outfit a small military unit. Dinner? Marcus asked, loosening his tie. Pizza, Lily said immediately. We're celebrating. Celebrating what? 5 years since the night you and Sage became partners. 5 years since we became a real family. Marcus felt something warm settle in his chest. You remember the anniversary? Of course I remember. It's the day Daddy stopped pretending to be someone he wasn't and started being someone we could actually love. The words hit him with unexpected force. 5 years ago, Marcus had been a broken businessman slowly poisoning himself to death, convinced that his only options were isolation or destruction. Now he was standing in a kitchen with the 2 people who understood him completely, planning pizza dinner after watching his daughter give a veiled presentation on tactical assassination to a room full of suburban parents. Group hug? Sage suggested, opening their arms. Group hug, Lily agreed, launching herself at both of them. Marcus found himself surrounded by his family, his brilliant, deadly, completely unconventional family, and realized that this was what happiness actually felt like. Not the sanitized version he'd once imagined, but something real and complicated and honest. I love you both, he said quietly. We love you too, Daddy, Lily replied. Even when you're being sentimental. Especially when he's being sentimental, Sage corrected. It means the emotional conditioning is holding. I'm not emotionally conditioned. Marcus, you're a werewolf who spent 3 years learning to suppress your predatory instincts so you could function in polite society. That's literally the definition of emotional conditioning. That's different. How? Because I chose it. Exactly, Sage said, their smile warm and sharp. You chose to become someone who could love and be loved. That's the most human thing anyone can do. They ordered pizza and spent the evening reviewing case files while Lily did homework that involved both algebra and analyzing surveillance footage from their latest client consultation. It was domestic and deadly in equal measure, the kind of evening that would have horrified Marcus 5 years ago and now felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later, after Lily had gone to bed with her usual bedtime story about justice through creative problem solving, Marcus and Sage sat in their living room drinking tea and planning their next operation. Vancouver jobs confirmed, Sage said, reviewing their tablet. Client wants the PAC alpha eliminated before the end of the month. Complications? Standard. Political connections, private security, the usual. Nothing we can't handle. Marcus nodded, already running through tactical considerations. Timeline? 2 weeks prep, 1 week execution. Should be straightforward. Famous last words. True. But we're good at adapting to complications. Marcus looked around their living room, family photos mixed with carefully disguised tactical equipment, Lily's artwork displayed next to encrypted communication devices, and a bookshelf that contained everything from parenting guides to advanced toxicology texts. You know what the strange thing is, he said. What? 5 years ago, if someone had told me I'd be running an assassination business with a void omega and raising a weaponized child, I would have assumed they were describing my worst nightmare. And now? Now I can't imagine wanting any other life. Sage set down their tea and moved to sit beside him on the couch. That's because this is the first life you've had that's actually yours. Not your father's expectations, not Helena's manipulations, not society's rules about what you're supposed to be. This is who you chose to become. A monster who found other monsters to love. A person who found other people who understand them completely. Marcus considered this distinction. Is there a difference? All the difference in the world, Sage said, settling against his shoulder. Monsters are defined by what they destroy. People are defined by what they choose to protect. And what do we protect? Each other. Our clients. Anyone who needs someone to stand between them and the things that go bump in the night. By becoming things that go bump in the night ourselves. By being honest about what we've always been. Marcus wrapped his arms around Sage and listened to the sounds of his daughter sleeping safely upstairs. Outside, Seattle hummed with the kind of casual violence and everyday cruelty that most people pretended not to see. Inside, 3 of the most dangerous people in the supernatural world had created something that looked remarkably like a functional family. Do you think we're good parents? Marcus asked. I think we're honest parents, Sage replied. Lily knows exactly who we are and what we do. She understands the risks, the moral complexity, and the importance of making her own choices. Most kids don't get that kind of clarity. Most kids don't need tactical training and poison resistance. Most kids don't have our kind of enemies. True. They sat in comfortable silence, planning murder and feeling grateful for the life they'd built together. It was twisted and violent and morally ambiguous in ways that would horrify conventional society. It was also filled with genuine love, mutual respect, and the kind of bone-deep understanding that most people spent their entire lives searching for. Sage? Yeah? Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For staying. For helping me become someone worth loving. Sage lifted their head to look at him, and their expression was soft in a way that would have been impossible before they'd removed Dr. Vex's conditioning. Marcus, they said quietly, you were always worth loving. You just needed to find people who spoke your language. And what language is that? Violence as vocabulary. Protection through elimination. Love expressed through shared darkness. Marcus kissed them softly, tasting chamomile and mint and the faint metallic tang that always lingered after they'd been handling weapons. Best relationship ever, he murmured against their lips. Only relationship ever, Sage corrected. Everything before this was just practice. Upstairs, Lily called out in her sleep, not a nightmare, just the normal sounds of a 12-year-old dreaming about whatever 12-year-old tactical prodigies dreamed about. Probably science projects that involved controlled explosions. Should we check on her? Marcus asked. She's fine, Sage said. Kid sleeps like a rock. Probably dreaming about tomorrow's training session. What's tomorrow's training session? Advanced surveillance techniques and basic explosives handling. She's 12. She's also our daughter. And our daughters need to know how to protect themselves in a world full of people who would use them. Marcus thought about this, about the delicate balance between protecting Lily's innocence and preparing her for the realities of their world. Dr. Chen called it age-appropriate skill development within a specialized family structure. Everyone else would probably call it child endangerment. But Lily was happy, healthy, academically successful, and surrounded by people who would die before letting anyone hurt her. She had friends, hobbies, and interests beyond the family business. She also had skills that would keep her alive in situations that would kill most adults. I think we're doing okay, Marcus said finally. I think we're doing better than okay, Sage replied. I think we're doing something unprecedented. Building a family based on complete honesty about who we are and what we're capable of. And what are we capable of? Anything necessary to protect the people we love. Marcus pulled Sage closer and listened to the sound of his family sleeping safely in their suburban fortress. Tomorrow they would plan another assassination, Lily would attend middle school orientation, and Dr. Chen would continue helping them navigate the complex intersection of love and violence that defined their lives. Tonight, they were simply three people who had found each other in the darkness and decided to build something beautiful from their shared monstrosity. It wasn't the happily ever after that fairy tales promised. It was something better, honestly ever after. And for monsters like them, that was the greatest love story of all.